Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to yet another stimulating edition of the IWFI Sustaining Happiness in Marriage series, put together by the Institute for Work and Family Integration, a research, educational, and advocacy organization in the front line of work and family issues, recognized as the Distinguished Family Organization in Africa by the Secretary General of the United Nations in our 2018 report. Living together is a unique opportunity to grow in marital love and friendship. The marriage relationship team at the Institute has been studying trends and coping strategies in marriages during this period. In previous editions of this webinar series, we covered issues on stress, anxiety over uncertainties, how to identify the causes and mitigate against them. We also looked at effective communication, speaking to be heard, productivity at work when you're working from home, with your spouse working from home, and children schooling from home, how to negotiate with the family. Today, we shall continue with the discussion on the power of unity, oneness, striving for one mind and one purpose. With me in the studio this evening is an intergenerational mixed panel of two couples, one of over 40 years and the other 12 years of marriage, which gives a special robustness to this discussion this evening. First is a couple who is passionate about anything that has to do with family enrichment. Patrick is a human resource practitioner, and his wife, Chibuzor, is a medical doctor, consultant ophthalmologist. Both are team leaders at the Nigerian Association for Family Development, NAFAD. A special welcome to Patrick and Dr. Chibuzor, Ekumankama. Of course, we have the founder and co-founder of the Institute for Work and Family Integration, Sir Charles and Mrs. Gloria Osezua, both certified marriage therapists who have been helping couples over the past decade grow in happiness. Distinguished panelists, do you want to say hi and good evening to our attendees?
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
You're welcome,
everyone.
Thank you very much. That means we are good and ready to go. So the ground rules remain. Kindly post your questions in the Q&A section, and you can vote for questions, which gives it priority in our selection of questions to be answered. I am Charles Aigbona, the Executive Secretary of the Institute for Work and Family Integration. I shall be your host. Today, we shall be answering the yet unanswered questions from last week's edition. So I would like to begin with this first on my list, which talks about the in-laws. What are the roles of in-laws after wedding? Will it be appropriate for a father-in-law to call his son-in-law to discuss the issue regarding change of name of the daughter? For instance, the father-in-law trying to persuade the son-in-law that his name should be middle name of his daughter. And so Osezua, I think it falls in your court.
Thank you, Charles. I think the issue of in-law is always very interesting. I'm one of them. There's always that emotion between the child you brought up, and there's also emotional link, and of course, Una has to start his life. But let me say that the demand on let me ask the question first. What is the role of an in-law after wedding? There is no defined role for an in-law after the wedding of your son or daughter. The in-law is there to support. If the couple have needs, and not just very happy if they ask for support. So you are there to play a positive role as an in-law. Now, we will all recall very vividly that when we married, one of the encouraging statements it's always for the couple to detach from their parents. And their family is told to attach to their spouses. You attach to your spouse, but you must detach from your parents, so you can build your empire. And what I tell my peers as in-laws, you build your empire. You cannot usurp, or at least resist the temptation of getting involved in your children's marriage. Otherwise, you'll be usurping their marriage. You can't really do empires. You just let them do their own. They'll make their mistakes, but you'll learn from it, just like we did. And they are not inferior in terms of knowledge and intelligence to us. So basically, that's what I like to tell in-laws like myself. But I'm sure Gloria has more to say on this subject.
Anyway, thank you, Charles. And I think taking the second part of that question, I think that type of request is out of place. To ask, the son-in-law whether they can, their name can be middle name of their daughter. First thing that connotes is the fact that you are undermining your daughter, thinking that she's not capable of making decisions of her own, which is not credible. And again, just like Charles has said, your role after the wedding is that of to support and not to usurp. By treading that, that line, you are actually stepping into somebody else's, place. These are individuals who have proven that they've attained their manhood and their womanhood, and as such, they can live their lives and make decisions on their own. By now trying to guide them, you are not allowing them the opportunity to make mistakes, like I said, and to learn from them, because they need to grow, just like you have grown. So an attempt, to keep asking, or priding without them really asking you for it is, not, allowing them to grow up like you have done. So I think it is a no-no. You shouldn't. And you should let them be. They will grow just like you have grown, and you will have opportunity to be proud of them.
Okay, I go to the next question. How do I cope with an unavailable husband? Its philosophy is that a man needs to hustle, travel, and take jobs as far as jobs abroad. We have 4 children. In a year, he comes home only about twice. How do you build trust and improve bonding in a marriage where a spouse is away for work? I think that applies to you, Patrick and Chibuzor. You should address this issue.
Okay. If I take the first shot, I would start by saying that it indeed applies to us. It looks like that particular question was speaking to our personal lives. I say that particularly because I live in Port Harcourt, I work in Port Harcourt, and my family lives in Lagos. And so this is like 9 years since that has been, since 2011, when my company relocated to Port Harcourt. And so I come to Lagos to my family only on weekends. Every 2 weeks, I fly to come to Lagos to see my people. So I'll actually confirm to you that it hasn't been easy. It's never been easy, right? It's not anything anybody would want for his or her family, yeah? But we just take things as they come because situations throw them at us. So for us, how have we managed that situation? I know it is primarily directed to my wife to see how she has coped with living with me for 9 years. as both father and mother to our 4 children. Yeah. So I actually give her a lot of kudos for that, and I really respect how she has carried on. But again, on my own, I have also contributed in helping her cope. And the way I have tried to do that is ensuring that I keep up with communications. I make sure that I chat with her and I let her know where I am at any point in time. Whenever I'm going out, I let her know where I'm going to, whose company I'm going to be with. And whenever I come back, I chat her up as well. When I'm leaving the house for work, I call her and we say bye-bye and all. In the office, she calls me as well to check up on me and know how I'm doing. And when I come back home after work, it's the same thing. We now have an open communication link for everyone. We do Skype, we do all kinds of video calls with the children to catch up. And then most importantly, when I come home during the weekends I come home, I make sure that it's me and my family and nothing more, because I give them priority at that particular point. I have been away for 2 weeks, and so when I come for that Friday evening through Saturday morning, Sunday, all of Sunday, all of Saturday, and before the Monday morning that I depart to return to Lagos, I ensure that I'm with them. I don't go anywhere. If I have to go out, I'm going out with my kids or I'm going out with my wife. And everything I do, we watch the children's programs together, their cartoons. I eventually know all their programs and we know the characters and we discuss all of them. So that way it gives me bonding, it gives me opportunity to connect with them. I do their homeworks. When I come around, I tell my wife, it's my turn. So no homework for you. I do all of that bit. So that way I think I help her in trying to cope and manage the situation that we have found ourselves. We know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not what we plan for ourselves. So someday in our lives, we'll definitely come back and live together again. But that is how we have tried to manage that situation. I think Chibuzor can add a few.
I think you've said it all. Yes, he has basically said it all. Communication is very important, in families that find themselves apart. And one thing that also helps is to know that if he had another opportunity, he will jump at it to come back home. So it's not like, it's something of choice. It's because of the economic situations that we find ourselves in that we have to be in this situation. So that also helps to encourage the bonding and all that, because that in his heart of hearts, this is not what he wants. So that's what I would say to someone that is trying to, make ends meet. Still have it that the family comes first in whatever decision that you're making. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was quite apt. There has been a lot of questions about communication with the opposite sex, so I'll just take a few of them. I'll start with this one. Please, can you talk a bit about having friendships with opposite sex, having a supposed friend of the opposite sex, calling your spouse almost every day, sometimes past 10 p.m., and it's not an emergency, and the spouse not really doing anything about it, even though you have complained about it? So the Osezua, can you address this? But you need to omit your mic so that before we talk about this communication with opposite sex. Good.
Thank you, Charles. I needed to clear with my wife because ladies first. But she tells me in Africa it's ladies first after men. So we are trying to reconcile it. But to address your question specifically, let me say it's not common to have friendship of the opposite sex among professional colleagues. The challenge, though, is beyond work. From an institutional point of view, I always say work and family balance. We're integrated. However, there must be clear boundaries and timelines for everything. After work, if you maintain a relationship which is as frequent as the one reported here, and even as late as 10 p.m., it's a very good chance you are committing infidelity. It's an infidelity being committed in marriage. Let me be clear here. I mean, when we talk about infidelity, the tendency is to think adultery. But in marriage, anything that goes against the objective purpose of marriage, the love assured, is an infidelity. It's a betrayal of some sort. And I tell you, emotional attachments, I mean, sharing emotion with somebody else weakens your opportunity or your ability to connect with your spouse. And what are we really talking about? Here, you are having an emotional affair. The woman is having an emotional affair with her friend, which excludes her husband. That is an infidelity. Because your emotional connection, emotional love, is meant for you and your husband. We were talking at the first, just a short time about the question. Even for friends, the idea is to detach. So because you're more critical with a friend, particularly where your husband has objected to it. Where people tend to explain it, but what I like to emphasize here, it is a slippery slope. The best answer or solution is terminate it and embrace your spouse so you can enjoy or achieve the happiness and unity assured in marital relationship. I'm sure Gloria has a lot to say about this.
Anyway, thank you, Charles. Yeah, there is a second part to this question.
Correct.
And we say that we have to look at, specific angle of X. That is, X is communicating with your ex-partner. So I'd like to take that aspect. It is a no-no, completely no. It's a no-go area, because when you engage in that kind of relationship, you are keeping alive the old flame, which should have died, a long time ago. You are keeping it alive, and it is harmful to your relationship, your current relationship. And in the process of doing that, you are actually making your spouse to look smaller than he is or than she is. Because, they are having this challenge of, I can't even get the attention, keep the attention of my spouse, be it wife or my husband, keep the attention so they can be with me, which means I am lacking something. So we are creating an emotional problem for our spouse by having that kind of relationship. So that can cause a host of other problems. It can ferment, resentment. It can ferment this opportunity of you now comparing your current husband or your current wife with your ex in different areas. And this goes on, it creates that unhealthy relationship and uncontrollable, bias, which you need to manage better. So if we continue to talk about it, the answer is we must not do that. We must terminate it. We must give all our energy, all our focus to our current relationship. So the advice is put off the flame and give your energy to your spouse. So you can have that unity, oneness, which marriage requires for you to thrive. Thank you.
All right, that was well dealt with. Let's go to issues of sexuality. And there's this one here that says, my question is on family planning. What do you do when you have a spouse who has refused to be open to any other method other than natural method, which has failed several times? Ekumankama, this seems like for you.
That's a tough one.
Wow, okay. Okay, well, if I start on this question, I would begin by saying that it's erroneous a bit to say that the natural family planning has failed several times. Yes, I say that because it is actually not the method that fails, but it is the lack of discipline, the conduct of the couples that has made it fail. So if the natural family planning provides that you study the body signs of your spouse, your wife, and you fail to study it, and because you are expected to study, understand how it works, what signs that she comes up with every day, and that way you can chat and find out when you are supposed to or you can have sex with your wife and when you should not, depending on what plan that you have. If you want to abstain, you don't want to have kids yet, or you are done with having children, as the case may be, then you have to go by that particular plan. But if you do not control yourself as the man or the woman, and you go out of that expected discipline to now go on with your act in any way you want it, the man comes back from work and he feels like, yes, I need to have a quality time with my wife, without really considering what the signs of the day says. Then when conception takes place, you will now start blaming the product or the method. That is not correct. It is not the method that has failed. It is the individuals that have failed to keep up with the ideals of that method. I say this primarily because we as living examples, we practice natural family planning, and we have 4 children to the glory of God, and we've spaced our children, first 2 and another first, and then it's the last 2, and it has worked for us. I remember when we started, and I talked about it with my friends in the office. Some of them, when we had our second child, they more or less laughed at me and said that, see, I told you that this thing will never work, that it's not the way to go. But I clarified and I said, yes, forget about it. I know the mistakes I made and I'm learning from it. And that happened in our 3rd child and in our 4th child, because we learned from that and we saw that indeed it's not the method that fails, but our discipline. So couples to practice natural family planning, which is indeed the best method, because it allows you that creative ability that God has given to human beings, that God has given to man, to participate in the creation of beings. That is the opportunity we all have, and it is easily acceptable and allowable through natural family planning. So it is only the method that works invariably. I'm sure my wife, who is a medical doctor, can bring even the medical perspective to the other methods, which is like the contraceptions and all of that.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Okay, so I want to bring 2 other aspects to this. The first is the bonding, the positive aspect of this method. It allows a lot for bonding between us. Believe it or not, he's the one that does the chatting. So every night he tells me, okay, what's your sign today? And he chats, he keeps the chat. I don't even know where the chat is. You know, so he keeps it, and like that, he knows my cycle even better than I do, you know. So it allows for that bonding, for that communication. And then when we've abstained for some time and it's now time to get back together, it's like a honeymoon all over again. So, you know, that, you know, because sex is usually, I don't know how I'll say it, but the women don't, they are not usually the ones, you know, asking all the time for it, it's the men. But when you've seen that this man has abstained and now he wants it, you give yourself, you know, very willingly, and, you know, because there's that respect, you know, unlike someone who is using artificial methods of contraception and then just feels used and, you know, all the time, am I now a sex machine and things like that. So it actually brings division really between the couple on like what is supposed to actually do. So that's one aspect. Then the other aspect is the health aspect. This is very healthy. There's no side effects like the artificial methods that can cause cancer. They can cause excessive bleeding. Sometimes they can even cause irregularity in the menstrual period. So all these things, even obesity, you know, so all these things, you don't have to bother about all that because it's natural and, you know, it's wholesome. So thank you.
All right, that was angled from all angles, actually. So there are a few questions here on communication. I'll take this first one that says, my wife gets so upset when corrected. I hate to see her upset, but I can't do without correcting her for our safety. She always says I am putting her down even when I sincerely attempt correcting her with caution. How do I approach this? And you says was, can this gentleman approach this?
I think Gloria will speak to this first. This time, I mean, we are talking about a man complaining about his wife. So
anyway, thank you, Charles. Just listening to this question, actually, you know, the use of the word correction, you know, already connotes a sense of superiority from the husband. There should be empathy. So what I mean by that is, before you say whatever it is that you are saying as a way of correcting, okay, you can now, like, you put yourself in that situation. If my wife should say, hey, you're always putting those shoes there, you should not put it there, or the bottle is always empty of water and you don't know that you will fill it, how will I feel? So if you feel, oh yeah, that would go down well with me, without being, you know, biased, yeah, I know I would think there's something that's coming. Because usually, if you put yourself in the situation of your spouse that you are trying to correct, you are more able and more likely to address whatever it is with empathy. So for me, what you should do is to address your wife. What is proper is to address your wife as a friend, as a, you know, a mate, an equal, because yes, it's your helpmate, not under your feet nor over your head. So we have to be conscious of that when we are, you know, speaking to our spouses. Address them as friends. Start from the point of view of appreciating them before you now, you know, come up with a strategy of how both of you can work out whatever the issue may be. You know, if we take that, if we follow that method, you'll find that your, you know, advices were received, and you will not be seen to be coming from that point of view of being contemptuous. But that is what actually incites your wife to think that, oh, you are treating me as if you are not as if I beneath you, or they are not happy the way they are being addressed. So, choice of language is very key in this area as well. You have to choose your language positively so that your spouse will be able to respond to whatever it is. Express your feelings, not attack. So I leave Charles this time. Do the heavy lifting, like he says every time.
I should answer the question fully. I don't tell Charles. Charles, I think, well, Gloria has done justice to the question, but let me add just a few more, maybe more philosophical. The irony in correcting is that we seem to see our faults in others. And the tendency is we exaggerate other people's own with what I call psychological comfort or confidence. And in marriage, this happens too. I don't know whether this guy is choleric, I don't know if it's personality profile or temperament. But when you look at it, we tend to make a number of assumptions. So now the danger is because we tend to exaggerate the faults of others, our spouses start to resent us because they also see your faults. They tolerate it. They're never helping you to correct them, but you exaggerate their own. And that leads to resentment. And of course, frustration will set in. And again, when Gloria talks about, we need therefore to avoid what other superiority mindset she talks about. It's important that we're able to talk to each other as friends, but with empathy, and make each other's problem our problem. I think we forget that in marriage, well, I think marriage is a four-wall room without a key. In it, you can't go out. You have to sit down and deal with it. But it's to put yourself in the place of your wife, discuss issues, and agree some strategies for dealing with it jointly. I use the word emphasis here is jointly. And if you do that, the tendency is your chances of her listening to you are improved. Consequently, what you talked about is so worry when you just shuts down and give a damn about what you're saying, and then be avoided. I think you really want to promote dialogue, communication, which the Ekumankama have told us very eloquently. You want to promote that dialogue in your marriage. And the first and foremost thing really is to appreciate that we are all work in progress. There's none of us that is perfect. And I think that's something we like to take couples through this process so they appreciate really, because we all have faults, unless we jointly start to work on them so we can get it better. Remember, marriage is to enable us, each spouse, to become better. And it's that conscious and deliberate effort to help each other that makes us better. Because that's what enables you to grow in love. And if you grow in love, where you find the happiness we talked about, and we are talking about, and the unity in your marriage. So you'll be getting the fruits, what I call the fruits of love, which is happiness and unity.
All right, thank you. I see that since we're talking about unity and the power of oneness, one factor is that of the children. So I will take a few questions here on children that relates to children. How can couples better practice unity in the upbringing of their children so that they are both united in their opinions and responses given to the kids? So Patrick and Chibuzor.
Okay. Okay. I think in this case, let me take the back seat and allow my wife to do justice to this for now, since I've taken two first.
Well, you still follow up.
You know I'm always supportive.
All right. Unity in the upbringing of children. It still boils down to communication on how, communicating on how we want to bring up the children. And sometimes you find that as the children are growing, they are very smart. They want to get something. So we learned that the hard way. So maybe they come to us, Mommy, can I have this or can I do this? And I say no. Then they go and have a meeting amongst themselves. I think Daddy will agree. Let's go to Daddy. And then they go to him and he says yes. And then when I see them doing it, they'll say, Daddy said we can, So I now had to go back to him and said, you know what, I had already said no to this thing and now you've said yes, So we learned the hard way. So when they come to us, especially in matters that we think, okay, they know maybe on a normal day, this is not, the rules or you just want to give in. Then you ask, first of all, have you asked your daddy? What did he say? Then when they go to him, he'll ask, have you asked your mommy? What did she say? So that you're always standing together. Once they've asked one spouse and the person said yes or no, that is it. So your daddy said no, so sorry, it's no, So apart from this, talking upfront about some things, for example, how to punish or how to discipline, So we also learned the hard way because sometimes when he gives one punishment, I'll feel this is not really appropriate for this thing, but I won't say anything in front of them. I would let it go. Then I'll now go back to him and say, do you think this punishment is really, appropriate for this thing that this child did? And then we talk about it. Okay, what do you think? And we come to an agreement. So every time we try to have a united front, and the children now know that once one person says something, it's final. There's no need going to the second person. Yeah, so like that, you have unity, yes. So just do you want to add anything?
Well, you've said it virtually all. It's just that one thing I'd like to add is the fact that, our 7 family values. So we have 7 values that we hold so dearly, and we've incorporated that ideology in our 4 kids. In fact, the children created a song out of those 7 values. And obedience is one of those values, again. And so whenever you do something, the first thing either myself or my wife would say is does it support any of our 7 values? So if it doesn't, I'm sorry. There's no 2 ways about it. This is what guides, or this like our own commandment, 7 commandments in our house. So everybody, be you a visitor or a member of the family, this is what you must abide by. You have taught. And so the children have grown to appreciate and accept that. They've adopted it and it's become part of their ways. In the same way that when they go to ask for something, either from me or from my wife, they know that if one person says, sorry, this is not happening, it is not happening. You can't even go back to anybody again, because the moment you go back to the second person, he's going to ask you, what does obedience say? Because we have a Bible verse for each of the 7 values, and each of them is linked to living those values in real life. It's not just about reciting them. So that is what has helped us really, really move on, and the children have come to this level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this next one that is really very interesting. And Osezua, I see you're having some lights shining on you there. So you have to throw some light You have to throw some light in this on this question. It's usually the reverse side that is the popular one. Good evening. Please, can you advise a marriage of over 30 years and you find your spouse no longer cares about his appearance while the lady tries to keep up? The answer is, who is looking at me? What do you advise?
Well,
But it's usually the women that should complain, but I mean, it's usually the men, but now it's the women.
no, but you know, child, let me put it in a light mode. I always tell Gloria, I say, you know, I put on weight so I can protect you. But it's a very controversial statement. You know, but I think it's a cop out. I can't do the kind of rigorous exercise she does. And so I have an excuse to make me feel a bit comfortable in my us getting over this type situation. But I think on a serious note, there's always a need to look your best. You dress up for your spouse, not for people outside who are looking at you. And so for me and my wife, I come back today, for instance, and ask, do you like this? If she doesn't like it, I will change it. There's no back and forth about it. And the same way, if she dresses up, so that I say, walk down, walk back, let me see. Someday, maybe a very people dress and they don't be as beautiful today. It's matter of fact. I also comment, and I think vice versa. So it's not about the people outside looking at you. We dress up for each other so we can show. I mean, it's a special grace. Call it the dignity of the man whom God has given, which you are. You know, the woman with the dignity of God. You want to look your best, so your spouse is happy about being associated with you.
Well, you've done justice. Just to challenge the men out there who might be feeling as comfortable as as you may have been. I always like to tell Charles, I say, just like you want me to look my best and look like the girl you fell in love with and got married to and is still, striving now. The same thing, I have the right to demand for the man that I fell in love with, elegant, handsome, looking great at every point. So there is need to help each other. You see, that is the difference. There is need to help each other to look our best. So we try to do exercises together. He's not he doesn't like too much exercise. So we try to do what works for him as an exercise.
You need to like
like walking, we go for walks. And, sometimes because I like dancing, you can just put on music and we just, dance together. Whatever it is that helps us to achieve the ultimate goal of looking good for each other. Because you have, that responsibility to make that institution of marriage look great. It is a challenge that we who are in it, have to uphold and make it attractive to those who are looking at it. So if we just ignore and say, okay, whatever, he's okay. After all, Janet took him to the beach. Jane took him to the club. I took him home. So the rest is history. No, we'll be doing injustice, to our calling to that institution. So we have to help each other to be better and to stay healthy.
Okay, thank you very much. I go back to you, Patrick. Now, taking COVID-19 as a case study, where a spouse doesn't see himself or herself at risk, and you have been trying to convince this individual to that fact, how do one handle that? That COVID is not real or it's real, and then the guy
I think I'll give it to my wife.
Yes, yes, it's in your court. I mean, it's in your court. So I know she checks people's eyes, but let's see how do you convince the spouse about that?
Well, it's a difficult one because when someone is already convinced about something, it's like nothing you say will change anything, So what I would ask is other means, the news, I mean, things that are happening. Most of us have, at least we know somebody personally, someone that knows somebody that it has actually killed, we have so many examples. So this thing is real, and it's something that we have to live with for now, So we have to, we can't say it won't happen to me, it's not my portion. All those people that it's happening to, I mean, they didn't pray for it, it's not their portion either, but it's happening, So it's just about reviewing the facts. So if the spouse, most times when you're trying to, reach out to your spouse about something, especially when it's an important issue and your spouse is just not listening to you, sometimes it's good to involve someone, maybe an older person that that your spouse respects, will listen to, and appeal to that person to please be an intermediary and talk to your spouse about this thing, this very important thing, because the health of the family is at stake. If one person gets it, then everybody in the family is at risk of catching it, and it's a deadly virus. We don't have a cure. There's no cure. There's no vaccine. So that would be my advice. Thank you.
Okay, so still stay with the Ekumankamas, and people want to know these 7 values you talked about.
Okay.
Maybe I should sing the song that the children made of it, So anyway, it's obedience, respect, excellence, forgiveness, integrity, love, and then God-fearing. So the song that they formed, obedience, respect, excellence, forgiveness, integrity, and love, God-fearing is the most important value. Ekumankama's family values.
Okay, we can get a manager to wax that album and see how it becomes a hit. So I move over to the Osezua after that light entertainment of that musical interlude. Is it right for a wife to be boastful to her husband because in one way or the other, she played a role in the husband's life to be successful? And whenever there are issues in the house, she always makes reference to it and use it to insult the man at every little opportunity.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of boastful. I don't think it is something to boast about, because when you come into a relationship, for better for worse, your job is to make sure that your spouse is better. Whatever you need to do, the responsibility, whatever you need to do to help him achieve the best version of himself, a better version of himself, is a job for you. So if you don't do it, you are actually slacking your responsibility to your husband and to your family, because he has to be the best he can to be the head of the family, so you have enough space under him, because it is Mr. and Mrs. So it's not something to now use as a tool. It is, even even when you are given that compliment, you have to, take the humility and, oh no, I only did my job, and that was what it was. And I know you will do the same for me, because whenever anything is happening, you got my back. I don't have to worry about that, because that is where we stake out for each other. That's where that unity, the oneness we talk about, that is how it is formed. It is formulated. It's the question of doing one item and you raise it up. Okay, yes, so I did this. So you put it there. So next time, no. You are interwoven in art and actions. In your very good moments and in the very bad moments, you are together. That's what makes you one. That's what brings the unity and loyalty and love. How do you express love if you have not made any sacrifice? So it is a calling that you are answering, and it's not meant for you. If at best, you can give glory to God who has given you the grace to be able to be useful for Him in your family, because your husband will do exactly the same. So, Charles, you want to say anything?
I think we've covered it really, but maybe it's to say she needs to be reminded of the objective purpose of marriage. So, Charles, I think you should find that couple, let them attend the marriage couple relationship program, so they can understand. And it is a mission. And our mission is to protect the two desires of love, the happiness and success of your spouse. When you say, I love you, you are saying, I'm ready to take a second position so you can excel in your happiness and success. I become happy because I'm performing my duty. The same thing. So, anyway, discover yours, I don't want to repeat it, but really it's to remind people the objective purpose of love, the true desires of love. Love is to make first, to seek the happiness and success of the beloved. And second, you want to be united. And marriage is where those two desires are fulfilled.
Okay, these so many questions here. I don't know if they're just asking for support for their point, but I will just take them. Patrick and Chibuzor. In a family, is it right, is it fair for the wife to shoulder 60 to 70% of the family's responsibility? That kind of question is like, come on, I need you to support me. Yeah.
Well, I would say it's not wrong. It is just a matter of understanding. It is about what economic situation you found yourself in. I tell you a typical a typical example of how we related to this in our time, in our own family. When I was still just cutting my wife, as a medical doctor, a medical student, she was already seeing herself as someone who, of course, the way it is, she would become a medical doctor, get a reasonable job as a doctor, and be paid reasonably well as well. And I was doing my postgraduate studies in economics in the University of Abuja at the time. And so one afternoon she asked me, how would you feel, or how would you react if your wife earns more than you? Do you get? This is a discussion between boyfriend and girlfriend. She was at boyfriend and girlfriend. Although then we were having slight ideas that, okay, we might end up being husband and wife, all right? So she was like, how would you feel, or how would you react if you happen to be in that situation and all of that? So I told her I'll be very proud of my wife if she earns more than me. And that would also be an opportunity for me to continue to strive to work harder, not necessarily competing with her, but to also ensure to support her. So, but if you find yourself in a situation where your wife earns more than you, and so by default, it's expected that she will happen to, she would have to shoulder most of the responsibilities of the home. And that will be a discussion. I always say that For us, it's communication. For us, it's understanding. We have to talk about things. We have to discuss our finances. My wife knows how much I earn. Every penny that is paid to me, my wife knows about it. I know how much she earns as well. So if the tables were turned that she earns more than me, then it will be that, yeah, she would have to go with it and pick up things. I would do the best that I can in my capacity, and life will continue that way, and continue to pray that we both do better at what we do. So I do not see anything wrong with the wife shouldering the most of the responsibilities of the home.
Okay, so I think the question here is because Patrick, you're just assuming that the wife is earning more in this question. So the question didn't say the wife is earning more, really. She just said she's shouldering 60 to 70%. So that's the first discussion, right? And then another thing is seeing the home as we and not I and you, you know? So if it's a we thing and everybody brings to the table, you know, what is available for taking care of the family, then we say, okay, how do we make this work? You know, in any enterprise, in any business or things, for it to succeed, you have to keep tab of your, you know, income and expenses and know how you're going to make ends meet. So in the same way, you know, both of you come together. It's like we're in this together and we put things on the table. How do we make it work? So, but in the case where maybe the man now is not even making efforts, you know, it's like he's earning and, you know, the family is not seeing anything, you know, and the wife has to shoulder everything, even though the man is working and earning. So that becomes a different matter, you know. So that's just what I wanted to point out, that it's different when one person, in this case, maybe the wife is earning more and there's been a discussion, fine. But in another case where maybe the man is even earning more and does not support, then that becomes, yes, it becomes wrong, you know, because the family responsibilities should actually be shared between the spouses, yes.
Okay, now before I go to the Osezuas, let me remain with you, Patrick and Chibuzor. You know, in the values you mentioned, you listed them very well. One of them is excellence. In corporate organizations, excellence can fit as a value, but where's the place of excellence as a value in a home? Very briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good one. So you see, like you rightly said, people usually only attribute excellence to academic excellence and the likes. But excellence actually goes way beyond that, and particularly coming down to the home. Excellence is in doing your work. If my son or my daughter is cleaning the ground, is he or she cleaning the floor, maybe mopping it or something, or sweeping? Is he or she sweeping it well? Is he or she even looking out for better ways to do that particular job? You don't wash your plates in the sink, and every day you're washing the plate, one plate must break. That is not doing the job well, all right? So excellence and in the home is in looking for better ways of doing things, better ways of effecting your chores in the home. Even in the husband or in the wife, how do I improve in the way I look after my spouse? How do I get better at loving my wife, loving my husband? How can I make my home a brighter and cheerful home? That is in excellence. That is looking at how to bring in excellence into the home.
Okay.
It's basically trying to do everything well.
Lovely. Okay, we'll go to the Osezuas. Let's have these questions on conflict resolutions. There are quite a number of it. Let's take this first one. Is it wrong for my parents to ask to see my spouse before we can settle a major quarrel that resulted in a temporary separation? The person is listening attentively.
Is it right?
Is it
my
wrong for my parents to ask to see my spouse before we can settle a major quarrel that resulted in a temporary separation? Do you want to answer, or do I ask them to see you for therapy?
I can just give an interlude to the question, because that it goes deep. So whether it is right or wrong is something you can decide based on different circumstances. If while they had that problem, the girl or the spouse went away unceremoniously, or was sent away, or was driven away, or it depends on the circumstances surrounding that separation. So if it was something they say, okay, we are calling our parents and your parents and whatever it is, it goes. It's not a question you can say, oh, it's right or it's wrong, because there are so many unknown entities around them. So you need to understand first and foremost, what was the situation? What was the condition of separation? How did they separate? Why did they separate? How long are they separated? So all these things have to be taken into consideration for you to start, going to see that if the person was beaten up and driven out, and she found refuge nowhere else but with her parents, she cannot just carry her things. After the parents have seen her, battered and they took care of her. They need to talk to them and say, as she's wanting to come back, so you are not going to beat her again, because it is not a way of solving problem. And you can decide that. So there's a lot to it that means that. So it is something to be studied, understood, and scientifically involved.
Okay.
It is not unusual for parents to want to see the spouse if there is a separation. If you recall last week saying, unfortunately for us in this part of the world, marriage is long with three boats. We have the traditional boat, we have the customary of the civil, the one doing the court, and have the sacramental. So one of them, I mean the traditional one, almost always demands that you come back, because it's two families that are married. So they assure the family, they are rich family, just what Gloria said, that you will uphold those code of conduct they gave you on the wedding day, which always includes, don't beat my daughter, don't spit on her, don't use the broom, a number of don't. So they want to re-verify and confirm. So that's just to chip in and say, yes, the circumstances are very important. And that way, so it's important to also know whether they are living or they are married is voted with those three votes. If it is, then maybe it was very natural or normal.
Okay. I still stay with you because these are difficult times and questions. Good evening, sir. Please, what happens if one is going through domestic violence and the husband is not changing and there are children involved watching?
Oh, that's terrible. Well, if there's domestic violence, definitely that couple, they need help. They need immediate help. There has to be an intervention where they can, be helped to appreciate what they are into and what they can do and what they cannot do to their spouses. So they definitely need help. And the other thing is, for the children, oh man, that's child abuse of the first order. For the children to be exposed to, because it frightens them. it scares them that the two people they hold in high esteem, that they trust in their life, are getting, they are tearing their world apart, because these children never begged to be born. You begged and prayed and whatever you did to have them. So if for nothing else, it is your responsibility to create a harmonious home, which maybe one of you or both of you have enjoyed in your respective homes, to create one that is better than that for your children. So to expose them to this kind of abuse is a disservice to those children. So whoever is battling, they need help. That's it, because there needs to be a dialogue, discussion, to know what the history and what is provoking, that kind of abuse in the home. And the other, they have to be, whoever is being abused needs to be protected as well.
Okay.
Okay. That's the level. They need therapy.
Yeah, they need therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Institute has a marriage therapy session.
They need therapy.
You call us,
yeah.
and we book sessions for you. And it's quite a rigorous process where we have diagnosis of the issues, and then to get to the root cause of all these, so that we can solve them. So that is about the top of the hour. That brings us to the end of today's program. I wish to thank the Ekumankamas. Patrick, you applied your human resources knowledge to in your family, mobilizing everybody with KPIs, and also Chibuzor, I see that the ophthalmologist angle, you brought great views into the issues that were raised and all that. And of course, the Osezua, what could we have done without you? Because what you see from what the elders see from sitting down on the stool, the young ones are climbing up the tree, and they are still yet to have a glimpse of it. So we need to thank you for joining us in today's edition of the program, and for what you've contributed to the whole family values and things of marriage and oneness and unity. I would like to invite everybody to not to take advantage of our upcoming married couples relationship program, where taking place at the end of this month. Is a weekend that will change your lives forever. It consists of both an online and an offline session. We're going to do things on communication, things on knowing yourself, knowing your spouse, making your marriage work, and all that. So we need to go off here now, and I will say thank you for joining us in today's edition of the program. And then Osezua, you want to say one final word to the audience before we go?
Well, I hope the evening has been worth their while, and we look forward to seeing them in the weekend of 28th to 30th of August for the married couples relationship, where your marriage love will be transformed and you will have a better life, going forward in your marriage.
Okay, Patrick and Chibuzor, you have a final word to say?
Okay, we'll just say thank you so much for all being here. Marriage is something that needs to be worked at. You don't just live through it and expect it to be beautiful and wonderful. So please take advantage of all these programs, because that is where we actually learned a lot. So take advantage, learn a lot, apply it, and be happy. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for joining us in today's edition of the program. See you guys when we call on you next time. All right, good night.
Good night.
Thank
Yeah.
you, John.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye all.
Good now. Yeah.